Oregon, January 7th, 2014.
Action!
Action.
I've been watching a lot of documentaries lately too.
Oh, have you?
Oh yeah, Werner Herzog.
Oh, yeah. So, I want to talk about a little bit of the history. What was the catalyst behind you and our band getting together for a management type of deal? Do you remember how it actually was like? That's the moment.
Yes, I do. I had been as I tell people when I tell the stories, I was a groupie. I was following Ed and the Boats, and Julia Vina worked for me for a summer youth employment project. I was running summer youth programs, and so she got to know me. And one day she said, "You know, you should be the manager of Ed and the Boats. You would make a great manager. You should do that."
Right.
And I was like, "Oh, that sounds like an interesting thing to do. I think that would be fun, like a fun hobby." And I remember I talked to, oh God, what was her name? They were a contemporary of you guys, the Rifle Birds. You remember the Rifle Birds?
I sure do, sure.
And they were another...
Closer and Kevin Kraft and what was that young woman's name?
Yeah, because they were my other favorite, band at the time. And I remember I was hanging out with them at the Dublin pub, and they're like, "Oh my God, management? Oh, you're crazy. Don't manage. Oh, that's an awful thing." I said, "Oh no, it'll be fun." Mm-hmm. And I think that, I think she must have brokered it with you guys somehow. I don't quite remember how.
She being
Julia Vina, if she brought it up to you guys. So I don't remember how it actually locked in, but I remember that it came from her.
Performing at the Dublin pub? Is that what was going on?
Yeah, I think you guys were playing there, and I was talking with them about it, and I don't remember talking with you guys about it. Do you remember?
No.
Yeah, but I remember Julie.
I don't remember anything.
Yeah. God, that's why you're doing this. That's why you're doing this. Well, I definitely give credit to Julia Vina, because she hooked it up, and I have a feeling she must have said, "Hey, you guys." And
that wouldn't surprise me.
And we started doing some stuff together. And it was during...
So, what do you remember about the band then? That was... What year do you think that was?
Boy, I probably could figure it out. I think it was in the late 80s. Do you think it was maybe 87?
Makes
maybe?
Sense. Yeah.
But what my first memories of Ed and the Boats are from when I first moved here from Vermont. I was 22, 23, and I had been in rural Vermont where disco was alive.
Disco was still alive.
Was alive, and people wore Izod shirts, and all my friends were jocks. It was the wrong place for me to have been in retrospect. But and I remember going to PCNS with Lester. Do you remember Lester?
The room groomer, yes.
Lester was this really kind of a crazy dancing guy that would come with his towel. Yep, and he would just go nuts, and I had met him playing volleyball, and he told me to come down to the show at PCNS, and it was just revelational. It was one of those epiphanies where room full of people, Ed and the Boats is playing on stage, and you're free. You're free to dance however you want. There's none of this disco shit. Mm-hmm. People are wearing what they wear. It was a sort of an opportunity for freedom, and it definitely was an art crowd. It's I sort of see those crowds now when I go out. There's certain pockets that have a sort of music meets art intersection, so that it's got a broader palette. And I was going to school to be an art major, so I had an art background, not a music background at all. And so it was really just such a delight. It was such a great scene, to be part of that. I just remember that room and the feeling of being in with all those people, just having this release. And I'm sure I didn't meet any of you guys for a while because I was pretty shy, I wasn't going to go up and say, "Hey, you guys are rock stars as far as I was concerned."
Right, yeah.
how commoners think of performers sometimes. They think that they're so distant
Oh, yeah,
from them.
There's some great divide that makes them able to perform. Whereas,
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, and so you knew us for a long time then, because PCNS would have been sort of 84.
Maybe. Yeah.
That sound right? 85?
Maybe 80. Maybe 82.
Yeah,
83.
Yeah, it'd be pretty early on.
Yeah.
So you knew us for a long time, and then because we would have had to have gone through the whole configuration of S.P. Clark and Becky being in the band.
Yeah, because
and
I don't.
then
Yeah.
you became our manager.
Yeah. When I first saw you guys, Becky wasn't in the band, I don't think.
Right.
But SP was the drummer.
SP was never the drummer in our band.
Or not SP.
Les.
What am I saying? Les. Sorry. No, and SP wasn't in the band. It was.
SP on keyboards.
Yeah, Yeah, maybe. I don't remember him.
Yeah.
So I remember Les and the three of you.
If it was PCNS, it was not. SP Clark was not in the band then.
Yeah, and I think that also what was true about the timing was that at the same time that I was coming in to manage, however we had agreed on it, was when it was the same time that Randy joined the band.
Right, so that was post SP and Becky, so we had kind of broken up at that point. We just said we're done.
Mm-hmm.
And then for some reason I'm not sure why, but we decided to carry on with the new lineup when Randy became available. We just said, oh, we're going to try this again, you know. And,
right.
So we started playing around again, and so...
yeah, and I don't know what would have been in your heads, too, because I had been a really strong fan. I mean, I'd sort of started to come a lot, and I knew you guys. I met Tony Dunn at one of your shows, who became my first boyfriend, and, you know, I was sort of part of that community, and I had a job at the time. Is that how it worked? Yeah, I think around the time that I started managing, I got that travel job where I was traveling and teaching people to take post office exams. It was the craziest job.
I know.
And
yes,
it was like being a stewardess, because when you were gone, you were 100% doing this teaching thing and traveling by yourself. And then when you came back, you had 5 to 10 days off, and you could do whatever the hell you wanted. And so I was the manager of Ed and the Boats. You know, it was a hobby that I was able to really live into in a way different way than people that have a day job do it. And so it became that the life away was so dull, and so, you know, even though I'm traveling the United States, I went to, 48 of the 50 states during that time. It was a 3-year period. And then when I came back and that job stopped, it was like there I had become a full-time manager. I was now, I talk about Ed and the Boats being the gateway drug to the music industry for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that then I've been in the music industry ever since because of that.
Right, in Portland.
In Portland, yeah. And I do consult internationally. I have a client in Turkey and a client in... Somebody's emailing me about, he's out of London. It's just odd.
That's the nature of that. And that's something I want to cover. The nature of the music business then and the nature of the music business now is way different. And I want to get your thoughts on that too. But we'll talk about that in a little while. So we started to do stuff. Now, when you started to manage us, what exactly was the management aspect of it? I mean, when you first started out, what did you do?
Well, what I remember is that by that time in my life, I had had a couple different types of jobs, and I had discovered that I had a real flair for promotion. Like, whatever my sort of stage jobs were, the promotion piece was really something I was able to put into it. I worked with kids, like when I said with Julie, and I would end up getting stories about the kids painting a mural on the front page of the Sunday Oregonian. And that aspect of my ability to promote the thing that was cool or interesting or holistic or whatever it was coming forward. So the travel job didn't really take advantage of that at all. But it brought the money in, you know. So I think the first thing I did was work on a press kit with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And that was with Tom Kitts. Do you remember
Yes.
Tom Kitts, the epic designer?
The level of professionalism on the promotional end became higher, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it just, the graphics were better.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the mechanics of promotion for for uh, um, for that time. Basically what you're talking about is print.
Right, right.
And so the mechanics of it is to get it to the right person at the right time, basically,
Mm-hmm.
and hope they will include it in their whatever venue
Mm-hmm.
they're working with, whatever media,
Mm-hmm.
like Two Louis or
Yeah.
the Oregonian, and so there was probably maybe 4 or 5 print
Yeah.
stores in Portland at the
Yeah.
time.
It was partly about the print media, and also, and it still is to some degree, the second one is about reaching your buyer, the bookers, the people that are going to, have you play for them.
Mm-hmm.
And what I learned through working with the boats and sort of bringing in the stuff I had already done other places was that the ability to capture a band, their brand. I didn't even know that word then, but how do you capture their brand in such a way that this object, whether it's the CD cover or a press kit or whatever the tangible thing was, that it could represent them.
Mm-hmm.
And it could get people to pay attention that had ceased to pay attention. And
Right.
with most of the people I work with now, it's a different.
We're talking about promo and getting the right kind of brand
Yeah.
concept going.
Yeah.
And what you're aiming for is a very singular kind of concept. I mean, you don't want it to be too complex. You
Yeah.
want people to say, boom, I know that
Yeah.
that's what that is.
I think, and of course, this is all in retrospect. I mean, I've been in the industry now since that time, so that's been a very long time to be puzzling over how do you help creatives, people that are, mostly musicians. I have other people that work with me, but how do you help them really move forward? And it does seem to rest a lot on that idea of brand, which I didn't even have the concept then, but it's what we did. We were trying to take the essence of what Ed and the Boats was and somehow package it in such a way that it would be palatable, that it would cut through. And here we have
easily digestible.
Yeah, and that the particular challenge we had, that again, it's one of those things where if I could have known what I know now, and there would be like a couple forks in the road you would take, and it would save you years of time. And one of those was that we had joked about changing the name because the name is so interesting when you know it. I've had a couple bands like that where when you're in the intelligentsia of it, it's like, what a cool name. No one in the band is named Ed. They're the Boats, and the collective Ed is the audience. How cool is that? But it wasn't something. It was during the era of grunge, for heaven's sake. So here's these bands with one-word names: Pond, Hazel. These sort of, Nirvana, and we've got Ed and the Boats.
Well, that's always been the way with Ed and the Boats.
Yeah,
The point, I think, is there's a certain amount of subversion, constant subversion of branding.
Yeah, and I think that was probably a part of, the dance we had, that was that my ideas around it, how you guys thought about that, trying to help, and I'm so much more graceful at it now. I've learned so much about how you start with the people. You really try to get into who they are and let them drive it so that it's authentic. And I think that to most cases we stayed pretty authentic. I don't think we did anything too, not Ed and the Boatish in the end. The tour was a strain on us because it was such a, like a big leap, and that's a whole nother story. How do you tour? How do you actually make that happen? But in some ways, the attitude, the artistic temperament, the humor, the even the sort of attention to detail, the quality, the idea of harmonies, the idea of Dan's utter, musicality is actually could be alive now. This is the time. There's something about being out of time with things. So, but for us in that time period, by doing some of those things, the packaging, the looking at things a little different, the kind of having a fresh start with me and Randy, I think did allow the band to really maneuver much further than we would have expected during the era of grunge. Because that's what my experience was in trying to book it, trying to get it placed.
Right.
Here we have X-Ray Cafe, that's sort of the epicenter of that whole kind of, I don't know, grungy, dirty, music from the people, and we were part of that, but we were such an anomaly. We couldn't really create a big thing there, but we were kind of on the edge of it,
Right.
and that the musicians were more, more supportive of us than sometimes it's just those bookers can be so, they have long memories too. That's one thing too about a band changing its name, which I counsel a lot of my bands. I have counseled so many bands to change their names. That the ones who have, it's amazing. It shifts everything because there's something attached to the name that is either historical, that has weighed them down, or it's been a misconception, or it's a bad name. Like your name wasn't so much a bad name, it was a name out of time. It just wasn't.
Well, I think it's safe to say it's kind of a bad name, but it's bad in the sense that it's supposed to be bad in a certain way. It's supposed to be flat.
Right, there's a sort of
like very dry English kind of humor attached to it.
Yeah, and the people...
In the Boats would be a name of a band in a Monty Python skit.
Yeah. Well, Dan, remember, you don't remember this, I'm sure, because some of it you don't remember, but I remember that when we were trying to brainstorm on it, because you guys had even said, we're sort of think this name is working against us, and at the time I joined you, you guys had been playing together for how long?
Since 1980, so...
Yeah, you were already together 7-8 years.
Right.
So it was a long time, that's a long time for a band, period.
Yeah, so we were brainstorming on that. What do you remember about that?
I remember that the only thing we could come up with, and it was just so silly, was maybe calling it Dan Haley and His Discharge.
Dan Haley's Discharge, yeah.
So at that point I'm like, okay, this is going nowhere.
Yeah,
but,
I get it, yeah.
Yeah. And
that's the thing, we were subversive.
Yeah.
Almost, knee-jerk subversive, in the sense of, if anything seemed like too much of a giving into the thing too much is like, forget it, that's not.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that.
Yeah, and I think that also the Pacific Northwest at that time was kind of the it area, especially with Seattle. So there was kind of a thing about who was cool and what was that grunge and that sort of heavier, nihilistic kind of thing. And so to be an art rock band, to have this sort of artistic twist and the sort of tongue-in-cheek was, it just, couldn't, it went over people's heads.
Too many layers.
But the thing that I am proud of that we were able to accomplish with whatever, push-pull there was around that, was that we did find the community. We did find a community that came around that, and that we were able to become a very successful band outside of what was being uber successful.
Right.
Meaning that we were able to, actually create a community that supported us. Well, when I say create a community, it's almost like you don't create a community, but you are a catalyst around a community. So the whole East Side Sound stuff, and that was a dovetail with my naive thinking about how to have some attention for you guys. It was like sort of by using that, because I was a journalist at that point. I was doing writing for the Southeast Examiner, and I think it was, oh God, what was his name? He dated Janet Julian for a while. I think they lived together. What was his name? Bass player?
Tim Renner.
Tim Renner was, I think, doing some writing, and he had talked about the East Side Boys or the East Side bands, because he said it, and I just took it and made it the East Side Sound. And as the journalist for the Southeast Examiner, I just started writing about this East Side Sound all the time, and you guys were part of it, and the Tree Frogs were part of it, and really Laurelthirst was probably the epicenter.
Right.
And I was also, I don't know if I was doing work with East Avenue Tavern at that point, but by talking about that and you guys being a part of that, and what did that mean? It really meant any band that could play lower volume, because that was a quality that we were able to do because of what excellent musicians you guys were, and your ability to really Randy coming in too, having that tastefulness.
Most definitely.
So the downtown clubs didn't want to book us because we weren't grungy enough and we weren't edgy enough and mean enough almost. But the East Side pubs were starting to have Unplugged. They didn't call it that. They just made space, and all of a sudden there was something vital, and it was everything from, the Tree Frogs were more jammy. You guys were whatever we call it, art rock. There was the all-girl lesbian band. I mean, it was almost the Misfits that could bring it down to a human level, and that whole scene then was able to have some. The press loved it because it was something bubbling up. And really, it was the Portland version of the Unplugged movement, which hadn't happened yet. We were in it. We were making it happen in Portland. And I like to say that when you hit a scene like that, it kind of comes together, and then it dissipates when it's not needed anymore. It almost, because now we think about one of the longest running clubs in Portland. It's the Laurelthirst. I mean, those guys are just, just keeping it going, and they kind of own that little type of thing, and they maybe have become less open-ended, but it certainly started there, and it still continues there.
Yes, and you can kind of see where that scene sort of dovetails with the larger West Coast kind of vibe, with like country fair and that kind of stuff too. You can kind of see how that would work.
Yeah.
And it does work. I mean,
Yeah.
The Tree Frogs play country fair, and
Yeah.
that kind of.
And I think it's also, the Laurelthirst is representative of a community that's, we're open to all people. We don't let you disparage other people. We, we want to have it at a volume that's okay for our neighbors. There's a kind of human and a creative piece there that I think really has allowed them to thrive. And that the musicians really found a community as well. And my favorite memories of the boats really are, what day of the week was it? Was it Thursday? Wednesday. And we did that for a couple, 2-3 years, right? Every Wednesday, adding the boats to the Laurelthirst. It was just the place to be. Place was packed, record sales. We would sometimes do creative things, the little, gosh, I wish do you have any footage of those men, the four men? The four men?
Oh yeah, the four men. I have several renditions of it.
Yeah, because
or
those.
2 skits, basically.
And is there footage?
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
And we did that East Avenue too. We did, and this is something that's the idea of thematic shows came up, bubbling up when you started managing too. That was part of the style too, was to put on things that were going to be more than just going in and playing. They were going to be some kind of tricky business going on.
Yeah.
Some skits. We did little skits. We did, special Valentine things
and then what was the one with all the streamers, the underwater?
10th anniversary show, I think.
Was that what that was? That was a great one.
Got some of that too.
That was epic. What I want to say about that is that in all the bands I've managed and bands I've consulted with, one of the things that stands out about Ed and the Boats was the fact that you had this artistic thing, and you had this A number of you are very creative artistically. You're painters or you're collagers. There was an ability to think about things in not just a music way, but in a more conceptual or visual way. And so how fun is that to have a creative band that's willing to put their energy into something as cool as one of those beater balls, or to really take the kook and go with it, to really spin that out and to make the experience of that be so much more enriched for the audience, for the people that were there. And that I have these very serious clients that I've worked with and got one signed and one's off licensing everything, but God, so serious, you can't have a fun thing with them. Your press kit's one of the funnest press kits I ever got to make, because there was so much color and creativity and willingness to spin a story.
Yeah.
And so the way that I learned that was a really valuable thing, we just did it because it seemed to make sense, was that after, I don't know, I probably had been working with you guys for a couple years by that point. I was at a party, and I got to meet Marty Hughley.
Oh, yeah.
And Marty Hughley was the head writer for the Oregonian,
right.
Music writer. And in those days, that guy was probably one of the most powerful people that you would ever, have in your sway.
Mm-hmm.
And so here he is at this party, and I go over and, get introduced to him. And he's like, "Oh, Lisa Lepine, I'm so glad to meet you." He said, "You know what we call you in the press room? We call you Lisa Lepine Promotion Queen."
Mm-hmm.
Because you know what? I never liked Ed and the Boats, but God damn it, you would send this stuff and I'd have to write about them. And I was like, all right, and that's something where you understand from their point of view what their taste is or what they're trying to do. They need to have eyeballs in the press. And so, we had great photos, we had great spins, things were happening around us. We were the sort of underground band that maybe didn't get as much credit for what we did in our time. But that moment was really crystallizing for me that not only were those things fun, that they brought in the audience, that we were really helping a community come together, but that it was also helping us be trumpeted or talked about, or at least get some press, because we got quite a bit of press when it was all said and done.
Yeah, you were the promotion queen. Given what you were working with, we weren't the easiest thing to corral.
No,
obviously.
no.
So we came up with stuff that was kind of a little bit off the wall.
Well,
humorless, boneless, simpering wimps.
From the press kit. This I love telling this story because I take this kit to classes I teach at PCC to young kids about music industry, and I said that the Willamette Week, actually they had a love-hate relationship with us, which often has to do with who the writer is.
Yes.
And fortunately for us, about the time we were peaking with Live the Dream, a writer came in that really loved us, and it all changed, which we'll come back to. But there had been this really scathing, review that basically said Ed and the Boat sucks, and and it was, we're getting press, but we're getting bad press. And you guys were just devastated. I mean, it's just devastating to have people be so mean in print, and that's sometimes what print is about. They like the ones that think they're cool, And so what happened was that a couple weeks later, there was a photo in the paper from the East Avenue Tavern. And that photo got more attention than the write-up. It was sort of the write-up wasn't, people don't listen. And then you guys decided to do this. Humorless, bonerless, simpering wimps see them. It's like you took the negative and turned it into a banner. And we have all these fans back east because of my family and the East Coast tour, and I'll go back there, they still have these other cars. They're all worn away, and I found a couple new ones, and people really loved them. So I loved that we were able...
That's a good graphic, too.
Oh, yeah, well, this is Tom Kitts. Man, and this all came... What I love about the graphic thing was that Tom Kitts saw a collage that you had made that had this man in it.
Yeah,
Do you still have that somewhere?
I probably do.
It was, rougher, and he just took it and...
Was it a poster that I made? Or something?
Yeah, it was a poster, and then he just You know, like now you're seeing it. I mean, like so here's this colorful thing in the era of grunge. He takes this, and this guy was so talented. We made coasters out of it. We had T-shirts, business cards, you know, stamps. We had End the Boat stamps,
Well,
and
think about,
you know,
one of
God, it was great.
The interesting things about that graphic, the way he did that, is back in the old porno days, they used to put black things over the participants' eyes, like the women who are, you know, participating in the sexual stuff. They would do that. What he did with the eyes of that man, he did, you know, did
Yeah.
the porno thing.
Yeah,
basically.
it just creates it brings to life more of what you really were, so that people could be drawn to it. I think that's what I teach people now, is I call it finding your authentic authority. That really what you're doing with branding is you're just finding, how do you communicate truly who you are, so the people who want what you have can find you.
Right.
And now with the internet, it's so much easier, so that we found a community and people that would want to be with us and follow us. But this helped, this kind of thing helped. And the other thing I love about this coaster, God, this was a brilliant thing. Do you remember what we did with these? We got sleeves and sleeves of them. It was not inexpensive.
I still have a bunch of those.
And then we got the stamper, and we would stamp on the back, here, you know, January 5th. And then we would mail them. This was for the tour.
Okay.
We would mail them to the bar we were going to play at.
Okay.
And so because bars are always desperate for coasters. And so it was like an in advance promotional thing. I mean, it was, cost benefit analysis. The other thing I love about the coaster, which we have to give props to Terry Peck.
Oh, yeah.
So Terry Peck was a big fan, and he ended up being a doorman for the East Avenue Tavern.
Right.
And we would always have our mailing list, because back then it was just addresses, didn't have emails.
Right.
I made a space that would be for comments. Just, because I still think that's a good thing. I still tell people, ask for comments, let people write you something. And he was,
It's
the
good,
doorman.
Too. They're pretty drunk and stuff, too, so they're...
So that's funny.
Yeah.
Because I remember we got some good quotes from CBGB's when we were at CBGB. Somebody wrote, "You're the best band I ever saw here," or it was I think we used it in our quotes because it was kind of a good, it was a good one. You're in the heart of the grunge, thing of New York City, and people that did show up after our rousing rush around New Jersey no, that's right, we didn't go to New Jersey. Remember we didn't have the back line?
Yeah, that's right.
That's a whole story.
Yeah.
But anyways, back to this. He had written in there at the end of the night, who are the boats and why are they calling me Ed? And that explained the name so perfectly that Tom Kitts incorporated it around, it's the sort of thing around the edge. And I just have always liked that at least we came up with a tagline that explained the name.
Yeah.
And, c'est la vie.
Well, that's part of the branding thing, too, is to come up with 5 words that actually say something,
Yeah.
As you said, about explaining who you are. When we first came to you as a manager, we had, as a product, at that point, Guts and Boxers. That was the first thing that you...
Help package.
Yeah, you did the packaging. We already had it recorded, I think.
Yeah. Where did you record that?
We recorded that in the basement at... Parts of it were recorded at Artist Sound. I think a couple songs.
Oh, that's right, Artist Sound.
And then the basement, the rest of it was recorded in the basement of the street where Julia, Vina, and I lived, on Mall Street.
Yeah.
And we did it on a 4-track. So part of it is really this kind of high production thing, and part of it is, like Baby Black, and those tunes were done lo-fi. That was kind of the end of our relationship with Artist Sound there, because we were just, it wasn't translating anymore. So that was the first project we did. We took that and ran with it. And, we had
That's right. And then the press kit, Matt. There was
Yes.
Do you have that? You must have a copy
do
of that.
have
I think I gave them all to you because it's black and white, and it's got that whole thing
Green.
was so much fun, and that was also Thomas Kitts who helped pull that together. And I mean, imagine, you guys are not familiar with that. I'm barely familiar with that, and what I do remember about it was that there was things we didn't like. I mean, it was just so frustrating because it's expensive too to print that stuff. But that shortly thereafter, I went up to I don't know what they called it at that point. It might have been called Music West. It was a music conference that was in Vancouver, BC. Vancouver, BC, and I was able to show that to somebody on a panel. They were talking about it, and they're like, "Now here's an example of what a great press kit is," and and it was like, cool,
Excellent, yeah.
We were much better received in Canada if we could have ever gone there because we got in that video contest, and really,
well,
I thought
that's another thing. We did the video. Too.
Yeah.
And we pulled a video together for, pretty. We got the warehouse somehow, and I don't know who we knew that had a warehouse space, but we were able to get that.
I think that was Randy had that connection. I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And Curtis King was directing it for some reason. I don't remember why, but.
Well, I think that what happens when a band starts to have a better way of communicating who they are, whether that's about the packaging or the level of the recordings or the level of the performances. And I think that, for you guys, I can't say for sure, but something about the core of you and Dan, Greg, and Randy coming in, and Randy being such a stabilizing influence. I had another band later where they had everything, but the drummer wasn't as good as they needed him to be. And yet he was a great guy. He was so they replaced him with this amazing drummer that just happened to have a cocaine habit. And the whole thing fell apart later because they all were teetering on addiction, and it just tipped it over. Where Randy came in, and even though he had to leave to go play for the circus.
Yes.
Okay, we're all doing this new band, and the new drummer can't start because he's got to go join the circus. Okay. I wasn't sure about Randy at the beginning because of that. It was like, what? But he was just such a stabilizing force, and he has such an ability to, drum at different levels. He really is one of those mercurial people that it just, I think, allowed for people to come back in and to start to come around. And that one of the things I also talk to creatives about when they're trying to do a big project is that you have to have a village. You have to have your tribe around you, and look to your fans. Look to the fans that are liking what you're doing and bring them in.
Yeah.
Partly I knew Tom Kitts because he was an artist. He was he and I went to life drawing classes because I had my art piece, and he was a really talented designer that was hungry for something he could sink his teeth into that wasn't like making brochures for Intel. And so he came in I think he might have done it for free. I can't remember, but he wasn't getting paid very much, but it was a juicy project for him. And we get to print it, it's full color. And I think for Curtis King, he had an interest in film, and hey, we can't pay you, but you want to be the director. And I think the Dunn boys helped. I mean, we had a lot of different people, that just had their own creative interests. And it was, I talk about having the heart, like the heart of something is that brand, the brand essence. If you can really communicate that heart so it kind of reverberates, it's kind of like big circles that go out. And if you can bring some of those fans and say, hey, come in, let's exchange energy, and you can contribute, and this, what is it you want to contribute, and you harness them. So as a manager, when I do manage, I feel like what I'm really doing, and I don't even like the term manager anymore, I don't use it. I call myself a godmother now when I'm working with the band, because I'm really trying to protect the energy that's really what the band is. And I've learned the hard way that it's very easy to make a simple mistake that works against it instead of for it. but that brand, that center, is so radiant that then people can come and exchange their energy to it, and that's where you get some really glorious things. Because I still think that video is really a masterful accomplishment for, I think we spent $200.
Yes.
And we just didn't know what to do with it. We were in the era of MTV where to get on MTV you had to be like a top 40 artist that had lots of money behind you. But if we had, this is why I've thought about now with YouTube's the equalizer. You put something there, and if it's got some heart and it's got a great song. Be My Fool is a great song. It's still a great song. And yes, it's snide in a way, but it's such a great song. And to do that video to it, and then to go up to Canada and have it be in this video contest. You guys didn't get to go to any of this, but I was sitting in the audience and I'm seeing all the different videos be played. Obviously, thousands and thousands of dollars. In Canada, they underwrite their artists. So the people that were after ours had spent $50,000 on theirs. And you know what? In our price range, pretty darn good. It held up. I don't know what won. I think some country song that was real slick, and it was more of a storytelling thing, how they do. But I was like, you know what? This is a piece of art, and whether we get to monetize it in any way, I think, it was just a really great experience. And a lot of people got to do very high level work or demonstrate their ability in that, Yeah, and I remember, all those different people.
I don't know what we shot with, or, lighting wise, what was available to us, and I don't know how we paid any money, because I don't remember making a whole lot of money.
Yeah, I think we co-opted with the community TV project, cable access. There was a couple guys from there that were on the crew, and then there was, I think they were able to check out equipment, And Curtis was, he was very good at, he was very serious about it. I left him kind of alone because I could see he was on task, and just brought in everybody else. Got Julie Keefe, God bless her, Julie and John Clicker. Oh my gosh. I've always believed that one of the most important things for an artist is to have great visuals, like either a videographer or a photographer. And when you have that, which really, with Ed and the Boats, I got to do a couple things that were really instructive, that were failures, things that you go, oh shoot, but some things that were intuitive. I didn't know what we were doing, and one of them was making sure she was part of our team. And John was very supportive too, but Julie really kind of took the lead. And then you lived with her, and it was like, these are people that are part of the community, which is what I think makes this whole documentary so interesting. Is that, what is the success of a band? And that when Ed and the Boats ceased to play as much, I remember counseling you guys that not to break up, but to retire. Not to say, but to say, this is just in dormancy right now. We don't know, and to be here in 2014, and it's alive again in a way, but it's alive in a with different imagination, or different pathways that can be around it, and it still comes back to making art together, making music together, bringing community together, era that we would have matured in. So it's kind of the era of 70s rockers, 70s, 60s, 70s. We get this.
Our high school
kind
of stuff.
It's like the paradigm of what you experienced when you were younger was this idea of, the Beatles coming out of nowhere and people becoming huge stars, and the whole idea of stardom, and the whole idea of sex, drugs, rock and roll, however that gets underwritten for a young musician in that era. I think it becomes the paradigm, and that as we have a historical ability to look back on those times. I think there was some great music to my thinking. The 70s, not as much into the 80s.
Back
Some
at
of
it. So we're at the Roslyn story. We go up there. We're talking about the demographic up there.
Oh.
The redneck
Yeah,
contingent.
was there motorcycle people there? I think it had a sort of motorcycle angle or something.
Well, it was a pretty rugged crowd.
Yeah, yeah.
And we did adjust our sensibility for the second night.
Yeah.
We had a large discussion regarding
How you guys were going to make it through.
just rock it out, bonk bonk on the head kind of music was what we called it.
Yeah.
And, it was a success in that regard.
Yeah, so what I remember is that the first night we were like, oh no, oh dear, like this isn't going to do. We barely kind of...
Wrong neighborhood.
Didn't somebody try to start a fight with one of you too? I feel like somebody was trying to fight with somebody. But anyways, so we get back to the house and we, hang out there. It's kind of a cool place to be. I think that all worked out really good. And I don't know what we ate or what I ate, but I ate something. And by the time it was getting to be night, I was so sick.
Food poisoning.
Food poisoning. Oh my God. And Dan was just, because I had all the pieces together, there was a way that my job when you guys were playing was to kind of be the buffer and do the biz, and
sure.
I had all the information, so I could do that. And I've learned, as I've gotten older, it's better to share some of that so one person isn't so critical that way. But, and so, I couldn't go. One of those times where you're just like, here you've waited to do this. Sick as a dog. And I think that the way it worked was that you guys went over and that Dan started drinking again to get through the night.
Oh.
That's what I think happened, was that's when he hadn't been drinking or hadn't been doing that, and that the only way he could get through that night was he drank. And then he drank for a while after that. I didn't realize if that was a good thing or a bad thing at the time. And that, somehow, I don't remember what happened. You didn't get killed, but I don't know how it worked.
It was a pretty raucous night, as I recall. We just pretty much rocked everything out. Just like no fancy stuff.
Yeah.
So.
And it was probably, my guess is just that was the night everybody was coming, so you got more of a mix of people, and it's more about the boats and the...
There was the boat race the second night, too, and there was more of that kind of excitement in the air, more festive thing was going on, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, I remember the setup was that, people had to come through our stage thing to get to the bathroom. That was one of the... Greg was standing here and I was standing here, and they would come through the middle of that to...
Oh, isn't that funny? Yeah, the other thing that I would say about it too, which was something I also learned, was that sometimes the promo, the way that you talked about the gig in your press kit or in your your history of the band had more value to you than the actual gig itself.
Oh, God.
So the fact that we played the Northern Exposure plays, and that maybe they were there, and I don't even know if they were or weren't, but that...
No, they were out of the season for
something.
Photography.
Yeah.
They weren't up there at all.
But the whole spin was about doing this thing, and then the actuality of it was very disturbing, and something like that happened with Scott Fisher too. He got to play the Olympics, and oh my God, talk about a bad gig. There was just like at the end of this gig, he and the drummer end up going outside to fight each other because there's so much tension. This is not a documentary about that, but it was like, but that story of having played the Olympics. Oh my gosh, and the actuality of it was just like, a classic rock and roll moment gone wrong.
Yeah.
And yet that was a really valuable thing to have done, so we could talk about it. So I would say the Brick was one of those. And I think by the next day, I just was remembered that when you guys came home, I was just like, oh my God, are they going to be okay? Because the night before had been so kind of scary, I think. We were all a little scared.
Yeah.
But we survived.
Yeah, I guess those are the best stories, huh?
Yeah, and I often wonder, about the guy with his, his huge African carving collection. Whatever happened to him, and whatever happened to those carvings, and is that house still there? But that's been a long time. Yeah, and I guess the way, if I was to have any summary comments, would be that I feel really excited for the people that I know from this project, being, playing music together, making film, just the whole paradigm of what's possible now is different. And it's actually an opportunity to come back around. It's almost like the same opportunity you have to go back to that song, and reimagine it. And for me, it's like, how can I reimagine a way to be a godmother and be part of this in the new paradigm? Because I've stayed in all this time, and it's like, why have I stayed in? It's because I still care about how to help people get their genius. I call it the genius that's in them, the essential thing that they're called to be in the world. And when somebody like Dan Haley is still doing it, you know that he's, the famous thing about Dan is that he, this is what he does. He doesn't fold. He doesn't do, he could never help us fold the mailers. He couldn't fold. And then I had a counseling session with him once, because I came from a background of career consulting.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember this, but he always had the dishwashing jobs.
Oh, yeah.
And so we were having this really intense conversation about, okay, let's think about what else are you good at? What else can you do? Okay, you got computer stuff, what else could you do? And he says, I know. He said, what if I'm sort of like a prophet and I go from town to town? And I'm like, Dan, you're already doing that. What if I'm like a prophet?
Yes. There you have it.
But out of that conversation, we did unfold the idea of him working at the library.
Right.
Which was an essential, that's a connection. So the idea of how to even, bring this stuff back around, is it something about how it gets made, how it, the YouTube, I don't know. But I have some ideas.
There's an interesting thing that just occurred to me is we did a lot of that career kind of stuff. Like we did retreats where we did our
the Myers-Briggs
test, and we did this kind of deep dive into personality types and stuff, and it was kind of this sort of encounter group kind of.
Well, and remember, you're the first band that I ever had that I got you a therapist, Linnea.
Yes.
Worked with the band to help us, know. And
work out conflicts and differences in opinions and things of that nature. Sure.
Yeah. So there is that, and some of it I've used, and some of it I still, But I think it's, how could you not have help, Well, how could you not acknowledge that those are important issues, and how they can actually? I have an astrologer now that'll do all the readings for all the people that I'm working with, and I'll tell you what, it really helps to understand it, and how the proper relationship is to who you are, what you're good at, how it comes together, and maybe even, what everybody wants from it, so that everybody's real clear on that, because different people want different things, And
how are you going to get there too?
Yeah.
Are you really going to be able to do the things that you want to do?
Yeah, and what's a legitimate pathway? Because I don't think any of us knew. I mean, how the hell do you get signed? Yeah. I tried that with a couple bands. I did sign a band, and you know what? It's not something that you can purposely do. It's something that people come to you, or it's that attraction thing, and just for whatever reason, enough of that outward stuff was able to attract the right partner for Dave Carter, and I was able to find a small label for him. And, and even that was interesting, because once I signed them, guess who jumped out of the rocket ship? I didn't want to go and be a national manager. So, I achieved the thing I'd been trying to achieve for different artists, and I realized I really like managing, and that to go manage on that level, oh my God, talk about dealing with the sharks. So I still am in struggle around what it was that I was really called to do, and I think this idea of godmother is the closest to it, and that you stay a godmother through all your life for the people that you have that energy towards. and
Right.
that it's about hoping that you can be of assistance in them finding their way to do the thing that they're supposed to do in the world. So here we are, same conundrum, different day, different year, different age, and I think this is really cool. So it's almost like there's an imprint that gets made. You see it in sexual mores. There's a mythology. It's like, why does someone have a perversion or a natural attraction to somebody because when they were 14 their teacher flashed them and it's cool or something, so they like, whatever it is that catches you then becomes your measurement, or how you get sort of turned on. And what I thought was so interesting with the boats, because we all had that dream of how we could get there, how we could make that happen, because it was still in the era where getting signed was what you did. Right. You wanted to get signed. That was the mantra. And yet, God, the whole gatekeeper thing and what that was really about by then, because now we're in the 80s, and it really shifted. It was now codified. It was corporate. It was, MTV came in, and it was all about how you looked, and it was a lot of money. There was a lot of money behind it, and that the people that had become superstars, so many of them kind of, how would I put it? I have a friend now that worked with one of the guys from Steely Dan, Walter Becker, and they had to intervene and send him to Maui because he was about to kill himself because he could have any drug he wanted in the world. He could have anything he wanted. So, everybody wanted that achievement, and yet once the people that got there, it killed them practically. I still think of Kurt Cobain, he didn't set out to, be that big, and when it came on him and no one was protecting him, everybody just wanted to get bigger and bigger, no one's there to say, dude, you need some help. Let's help you. Let's take you down for a while. And that was really powerful to see him have that happen to him, because I think one of the things that we came across, and I remember this being such a conundrum, and yet as I've been in the industry so long now and worked with so many different kinds of artists, I see it's the most critical thing to understand and to really have an idea about it, which is that when you do start to have the fame open up, when we started to get in favor with Willamette Week, and there was a big picture of us, and there was a write-up, and they started to really be watching for us, it was very discomforting to the band. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
It was like, I felt like it was you and Dan in particular that were like, oh my God, like now we're successful. Like now what's required of us. And what I remember about that was that you were getting a little taste, you collectively, a little taste of what that success would feel like when you started to be the band that's being trumpeted and people are coming up to you also at the shows and like, oh, we saw you in the Willamette Week, and the audience people see that as huge, or they like when I saw you with the Pretenders, I'm like, oh, my favorite band made it, wow, how about that? And so that was the era where what my counteraction to that was to do the trade with the acting studio. Do you remember that? It was like, it was something to help Ed and the Boats be able to have what I call a persona. That's what she did with you. I didn't know that's what she was going to do, but it helped the performing part be separate from the individual. And I always felt for you, remember they came up with like there was little, like you had characters. Dan was the good soldier. You were the world's most inaccessible man.
Oh, okay.
Do you remember what Randy was? I don't remember the other two. I remember you two. And it was like, oh my God, that tells you so much. And that I thought in particular for you, it was this opportunity to have this character that would protect you in a way so that you could perform and still be Dennis Kenny and almost be like, don't be thinking you're going to come glom on me. That's not who I am, And of course Dan is such the good soldier, he's gonna do what's right if he can, even if it's wrong.
Yeah.
And so something about that whole experience was trying to help the band understand how to survive their own success.
Mm-hmm.
And even the tour was really a huge success, but it
Yeah.
just about killed us. It was just, it's so hard to actually be a success in that old paradigm.
Right. So when you say it almost killed us, what does that mean?
Well, I think it means that, there was such a huge sacrifice of time and money and energy, and relationships were, put under a lot of strain, and there became almost like a slavish, is that a word? Slavish, where you're sort of so focused on something that you lose track of some of the what I call it, you lose track of kind of the humanity of what you're doing together. And that we came back kind of splintered because we were, and I'll never go on tour again because it's a very difficult, I think, to be on tour if you're not built for it, and if you're the marketer person, that's what you're doing. And, it's no fun to be on tour with a marketer person trying to do all of that work from the road.
Right.
Because we weren't ahead enough of the game to be able to have all the promotion in place. I mean, God, when I look back on it.
You were working a lot of different, you were wearing a lot of hats on that tour.
Yeah. And yet, once you get away from that implosion at the end where you're just like, this is what it's going to take. Because on the East Coast, we were incredibly well received. For whatever stress we had, we opened for Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. We opened for Ani DeFranco, who wanted to sleep with Greg, but didn't. And we opened for Live. I mean, those are pretty heady bands at the time to open for and to be really well received by their audience. And in addition, the whole thing with Herod Blank and going along with this movie, to play on the streets of New York City in front of the Film Archives. I mean, the things we got to do on that tour, even though some of the turnouts weren't massive, but it was really an amazing success. And we would have made money, except for, remember, there was one college gig that fell apart.
Yeah, right.
But it was almost, I always say that it was very clear that for Ed and the Boats to really move to the next level, we would have to go to the East Coast and do it maybe 3 more times to get to just where it would start.
Yeah, and it was such a massive effort already. It was just like,
Yeah. But I think...
A little too old for that kind of action.
Yeah. I think everybody just had to really look at what that was about. And what I say to people now, because I've seen it happen, not just the Boats, but to other bands, is when that starts to happen, it's like a rocket ship, right? You're going to send Apollo 10 up into outer space. And so if your band does not have its thing together and you start to go up into that stratosphere where the stars live, it's the in-between where if there's anything wrong with the rocket, it's going to implode, where it can't sustain. And that to really be up in outer space, I mean, go watch Gravity. Who wants to really be in outer space? Who really does want to be a star? Oh my God, these people that are stars, even today, I don't know that that's really what the life that any of you would have enjoyed or liked. It was like the idea of it, but the reality of it in that time. Now I think, what I think is really interesting, I mean, this is my, part of my, where I am now around Ed and the Boats, is that now we're in an era where you could become, I don't want to say famous, that's not the word I want to use, but you could connect with a very strong community of people that like what you're doing and support it. Might be monetary. It could also just be energetic, that you have an audience that receives what you make. It's a simple exchange. That's all could be done on YouTube. You would never perform live if you didn't want to. You wouldn't have to. You wouldn't have to go on tour. You could be in a studio or with a small audience. You could be doing it all through visuals, through, there's just a different model. And it's around individual songs. It's around finding your community. It's just different right now. It's still, I call it the new Wild West, because people are hitting, digging for gold, and you see someone like Lady Gaga hit a gold mine. She gets huge. She's kind of going down now. Like the hitting the gold mine. It's not what I'm going for. It's like, hey, got a few. There's a little silver mine here. There's just a little bit, And the people that I see do that, and there's a few of them that I know, and it's just such a beautiful life they get to have, because it's manageable, it's small, and yet their art is in the world in some way. It's never easy, but there is a different paradigm now, and I think that it's very interesting too to be people of this. How would I put it? That Ed and the Boats, or the members of Ed and the Boats, are also chewing or thinking through or exampling what is it to be an artist or a musician and come out at this older age and look at it differently and see that maybe the gold or the success is this exactly, that you still are friends with each other, that you make great music together, that you can be open to new perspectives or approaches that are now available to you, especially with the art background, especially with you and the movie stuff and all that. I mean, I said that to you when Dan came back, is that's the place that can plug in and bring it to the world, and you just never know. You never know where something can have an impact. That maybe now is the time that people will listen to that point of view that's like a little bit sardonic and a little bit like, oh my God, we're blowing up our world. It might be timely, more timely than it was then. Who's to say? But it's interesting. I think it is interesting. There are a few other bands I know that are coming back together from earlier, sort of breakings up or retirings. Right. And there is a way that it's almost like their bowling league. There is something that has that quality to it, and that the people that like them still come out. They may or may not. I think that dovetails with this concept of the authentic authority. That really it's about what is the thing that's so authentic in this project that wants to come forward, and when you touch into that, the authority it has just is undisputable. It's like this intersection. I talk about it as being like a DNA. All this is something I wish I understood when I was younger, but it's like taken all this time to have this little paradigm. So what I say is that what's the DNA of Ed and the Boats or Rainworms or whatever this conglomeration is? It's like, the strands that come together, and those intersections are very unique. You take the Dan Haley music genius, we take your sort of point of view that's has a sort of humorous, but it's sort of dark, but it's got a really sweetness to it. I mean, there's just a real creative uniqueness that comes together from the two of you. Add in Randy and Greg as the rhythm section that have a community, just your whole relationship with each other. It's like hard to fail to make something that has a very unique DNA. And that somewhere, the whole premise is if you can just show that and put it out there in the world so that people who want that can become to it. It's like you become magnetic, and it starts to be that you find your place. And some people are destined to be stars, and they can do it, and they can not implode when they go up. But for most of us, it's where where's that aha place where we have our roots in the ground and we can be blooming like a tree. That's the metaphor. That the strands of the DNA are really like the roots. The tree is the sort of communication, all those rings of that stability, and then when you come to fruit, that's when people can come and get what you have. And some of my most successful clients, quote unquote, there's one guy that has this outer space thing he does, and he plays McMiniman's UFO every year, and he's it's just perfect. He's happy. The people, he doesn't have to try to be the next James Taylor. He gets to work at Costco and have his wife and kids, and he's building a rocket ship in his backyard. And I say that guy successful because he found his place and he's happy. There's an audience for the stuff that he's into. And, God love him. What would have happened to that man if he'd been, suddenly famous? The wolves would have torn him apart. Artists are tender people. Very tender. And so I'm kind of and what's nice nowadays is people they don't have that mythology anymore because it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's the broadening of the sensibility.
Mm-hmm.
There's like you're saying in the 70s, I think it kind of climaxed with the excess kind of thing, and then the punk thing came along, and that was a different kind of excess, and it's just, I don't know, it's more earthy now, I think, it seems, anyway. I mean, there's more room for an earthier kind of organic sensibility, I think.
Yeah, we're also, right now I feel like we're in the era of fusion. Like they say that we're in the first time in history where we can actually hear all the music that's ever been made in history. All the way back to the bone flutes they've found in caves. They replicate them and they can play them. So we have before us, anybody can access all the music that's ever been. And so the question is there something new to be created? Maybe down the road, but right now people are so into fusion. That really gets complicated. How do you describe this band that's got polka influences and classical influences and hip hop?
Well, the
oh my gosh.
Too is, if you go back and you look with the eyes that you have now, like you sent me this Everly Brothers
oh yeah
connection, on Facebook, and I went back and was listening to some of the Everly Brothers stuff on YouTube, and you heard the song Kathy's Clown a million times probably, but you go back and you listen to it now, it's a strange little tune. I mean, there's the little Kathy's Clown part of it, but then there's the bridge part of it that's a totally different rhythm from the main body of the song, and they play the bridge twice in it, and it's very strange. It turns from this kind of almost Latin thing to more of a Latin jazz kind of thing. I mean, it's really kind of interesting, and I think we don't necessarily recognize things as they are until we get older, and then we start saying, okay, yeah, there's a lot of weird little things going on in this song that I didn't realize when I was younger, and that's the beauty of going back and listening again.
Do you find that is true also for listening back to Ed and the Boat Songs?
Oh, most definitely. When we practice, we do reimagine things. I mean, we totally redid, there's a song that Dan and I wrote called Bipolar. It's a Rainworms tune. And we totally redid the rhythm on it. I mean, it's more like a Girl from Ipanema rhythm now.
Yeah,
before it was more of just a straight rock thing. But now we've got this whole Latin thing going on with it. It's just, much better song.
Do you ever go back and hear the words and go, oh my God, I never thought about it that way. Because that's what I think is the words change or the meaning.
Yeah, the words change. Right now we're in the midst of rewriting the lyrics for Downtown Sunshine because it's so embarrassing, to me at least, to sing the words as they were.
Cool.
I don't want it to be that.
Yeah.
It's such a pretty song. I want it to be something else. I don't want it to be quite so...
Yeah.
So blatant, So that's kind of the. I just emailed or messaged Dan about that. I said, let's rewrite the lyrics to that one.
Yeah, because it's.
You know why? Because I looked at some footage from 1984 when we were on the Dan Halverson show. Dan Halverson was a local guy that had like a cable TV show, and we were on it. And we did some performance on that show, and we did Downtown Sunshine on that show. And I think it's the only performance that we have of that song. And it just like it was kind of embarrassing for me.
It almost, what I think is so exciting, that's why I'm like, because I managed Scott Fisher for probably longer than I managed you guys. You know, it's another long relationship that's coming around in a different way in a sort of parallel sense. But there was something about this idea that, you know, the song is precious, and that's exactly how I wrote it, and how, you know, there was this whole thing when he was younger, and then he gets down to LA and he starts to do a little co-writing, and he starts to have a sort of distance from them, and he realizes that, you know, change could be good, you know, doing a song differently, or throwing out a song, or rewriting the words, or treating this song differently. And it's just, you know, opened up his creative opportunities. He's more commercially oriented, really has had a lot of success with licensing. And so my relationship with him is around licensing now, which is a doorway that I want to be able to open song by song, not about being a manager of a band, about a song that, you know, has a place. And it's just a different way to think about it. And that you take it's almost like you guys are co-writing with younger versions of yourself. You know, how interesting would that be? And that, you weren't at that show, but Dan had a show at the Alberta Street pub with the Dan Haley's Friend Harmonic. And they were doing their reggae night. I'm not a big reggae person, but it was hilarious. It was so cool because he took the boat songs and made them reggae songs. And it was like, oh my God, especially like Be My Fool really lends itself. And it was like, you know what? Doesn't matter. That's a great song. Doesn't matter if it's reggae. And you know, it gives you some flexibility. You know, maybe that's what you do right now. You throw the reggae thing on it, and that's the new way that you hear it, and that gets through. I mean, who's to say? Right. It has to be something out of your own creative sensibility. Right. But it's something about being not so precious about these things that come through you. They're yours. You can repackage them and redo them and recombine them. Like I tell people, take 5 songs from your 4 albums and make a little EP, because those are all lullaby songs, you know, and you can sell them to parents. Between you guys, how many songs do you have?
I really don't know.
What would you guess?
Between Dan and myself, I mean, just, you know, Dan's written a lot of stuff that's just, you know, Dan stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's 200 or 300 songs probably there, I bet.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And there are songs of Dan's that I would like the Boats to do, you know, that he's done with, you know, when he was away, that he wrote in those days. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. We just don't have that much time together, so, but... Yeah. You know, it's tough because you know, the idea of being in a band before was it was like you elbowed everything aside and you did your band, basically, and that's what we did for 13 years, and that's why it was so. That's why it took its toll. Yeah. You know? And because not just because it's people get hurt in that kind of situation, but also because you hurt yourself. You know, you it's not just an arrogant thing. It's a painful sacrifice in a lot of ways, and so you do that. But nowadays, none of us are going to do that. You know, I mean, Randy would probably be able to do something, but he's got his job and he's got his apartment. Well, and Dan's got his whole other life besides in the Boats. I mean, most of his money is made playing sideman in other bands and gigs and stuff.
Part of it, again, is like what I've learned to do with the people I work with, which is sort of like I'm just at such a I'm so far away from where I was then. It's all a path to where I am. But there's this way that I see the new landscape, and there's such a different way to do things, which means, the imagination I have for Dan is that if we could help figure out how to get some of those dance songs into licensing. Like if Ed and the Boat songs you and he have written, if any of those could get licensed, whether someone's going to sing them, whether your version, that's his retirement, that's his income. Like if Dan Haley was able to be a total creative force and not chase after teaching. I think he's an okay teacher. He's not a great teacher. Not take on the stupid. I did a thing with him the other day where we just sketched out all the things he's involved with and where the money was coming. And I mean, he's got all this stuff scattered and none of it's really paying. And now he wants to start a string quartet. And I'm like, have you thought about what you got to pay a string player to show up to play with you? I mean, let's go to where the gold is. And the gold is the songs and the performance that you and Dennis have together. That's where I think there's gold. Meaning there would be some way that creative thing could actually return some value. I don't know. Like you get one big car commercial, you might be done. But that's that thing of getting signed. But there's little opportunities, and there's just a doorway right now that I'm trying to massage open, because what I have after all these years in the business is I know all these great artists. The people I worked with, from you to Scott to Dave Carter to even some of the bands that weren't as maybe artistically, pure, they were commercially available, like Kerosene Dream and Big Time Rosie. I mean, there's material and there's people there. And then there's the Janet Julians who never have done it. And there's, Corona. She's got some amazing songs. She'll not, it's like where can they fit? Is there a way that they come through? Because they do stand out when they're up against stuff that's just whatever, And then the other piece of it is this. The visual piece. It's a different way to communicate. It's a different model, whether it's about, videos or even just, Tom is really interested in how that works. He's a search engine marketer, knows how to maybe help it go online. So there's like this different resource base of people to come together.
In the old days, you would consider them marketing strategies, but now they're mostly cross-platform media strategies that you're just trying to keep stuff in the pipeline.
Yeah. And why I call it transmedia, so I don't have a name for this idea, but I have the tagline or the explanation: transmedia song publishing, which there's all different ways and different levels of how that might happen. And it is about building another community or another set of affinity circles. I call them affinity circles, people that exchange energy around things, songs, because they have a vested interest to do it for whatever reason. You try to have it be mostly energy exchange, but sometimes you pay someone. And I have an amazing wizard producer man that's starting over again at age 64, and he's amazing. He's got a space right now where there could be this kind of thing set up. You know what he owns? I mean, if nothing else, if I pitch you nothing else about this person, but one thing is he owns, oh God, I won't be able to remember the name, but they're like those Super 8 cameras. He owns 4 of those. He has a whole setup.
Super 8 cameras?
Yeah.
Movie cameras?
Yeah. Yeah. That he still has. They're all operational. Like, he's a gear dude. Because he's a guy that worked with Walter Becker. He worked with David Lynch. And then he hit a big skid in 2008 when he was trying to build his his crowning studio that he was going to make next to Luke Skywalker Ranch, and lost everything, and his girlfriend hocked his gear. It was just bad. Bad. And he ended up in Portland, and now he's kind of coming back. And he's somebody I'm working with. I'm godmothering him in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm like real interested in seeing if that person, everybody I brought to him is just like, he's just got magic in him. As he gets more and more healthy and back in his thing, you'll see what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I twisted Scott's arm to go see him, and he didn't want to go. And 3 hours later, after they connected, and he's just one of those people that's very, because I think that if there's anything that I will take away from the work I've done, because I've stayed in it.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get out.
Right.
I don't know what that's about exactly, because, I live in a little tiny house that I rent. I finally have a newer car. I mean, I don't have much,
Mm-hmm.
but I have relationships, and I have been able to be close to the art, and to watch it get made, and to have some satisfaction that it got experienced beyond just, the basement at, what was the name of the guy from Laurel Thirst?
Laurel Thirst.
Remember
Doug.
Yeah, I mean, I remember listening to you and Dan write, was it?
9 More Holes.
No, it was the other one. That was there, but there was another song. It was off of the album. Was it the Chestnut Tree song?
Mountain Blues.
Might have been Mountain Blues. It was one of those songs like that, and just to hear that come alive, and then to see it all the way through. Mm-hmm. That's another song I think.
That was in Doug's basement.
Yeah, that song. I think that's a licensing song. That song is it's so beautiful. It's so open-ended. It's got the potential. And it's like, gosh, if you can't get signed, that's not even an option. Maybe you can get some money for your songs, some other way.
In that Cheryl Strayed movie that's coming up.
Yeah.
That wild movie.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, So there is something about, for me, trying to bring all these connections, and that the people that I have worked with, I don't work with people that are assholes. They gotta be good people, and that I will say Fred and the Boats is whatever else we did or didn't do, what a great bunch of people, and that your friendships are so beautiful and they've maintained, that's more about success than watching some of these rock and roll bands that end up, suing each other and, God.
When money gets involved, all that stuff starts being an issue.
But
We
anyways.
never had that issue, I don't think. We had our conflicts, but they were more along creative lines than monetary lines.
Yeah, and I probably saw less of that, like that, because I try to stay out of the creative cauldron.
We had conflicts, I think, with you just on the marketing strategy ideas.
Oh, yeah, because I would just really push.
Yeah.
And also what I've learned is that you got to start, you have to really have it be artist driven. If the artist doesn't see the path or doesn't want that path, you don't go down the path. That was the disconnect between what people thought they wanted and what they were actually able to endure to get there.
Well, we've run into that issue many times in the Boats career, if you will. The first big record that we made, Go Fish, was, you listen to it and it sounds good, but at the time we just, when it came out, it was like, that isn't us.
Yeah.
And we put all this money and stuff into it, and we just didn't have the heart to get behind it and push it. And we didn't know how to do it either. Okay, we made the product, what do you do now? And we didn't have the not having the heart behind it is, you're not going to get it done.
Yeah, that there's two. That's the challenge in what Clarissa Pinkola Estes, who's a woman that I've really studied with as my wisdom guide, like thinking about how she looks at it, and it's such an awful time for artists, any kind of creators. It's just the devaluing. It's just so hard. So on one hand, how do you stay how do you protect that creative spark so that it is commercial? You know, it's got to be who you are, and if it isn't, then you somehow have missed that whole concept. That's why I don't have much creative input with, you know, I don't have a music head. I just know the songs I like. I might have a comment, but you know, you have to get the right producer with people too. And I know the good producers in town too that won't make it awful, but they'll bring it forward for you. Rob Stroop's good. This guy is amazing. His name is John Neff. There's a couple others. But then you do have to harness it to some kind of marketing, some kind of outreach. And that's why this idea of authentic authority, if you really do that, and it's almost like therapy. You know, like, who are you really? And what is it really about? And can you stand to expose that in some way? And if you can, then there's a way for the music to flow out, you know, that those two things. And sometimes it's alternate ways. This is why the transmedia thing is so exciting, you know. I told Janet, I so want to do something with a couple of her songs because, you know, Janet's not going to be, you know, you're not going to put her on Austin City Limits, and she's not going to go do that. That's not the path. You know, you don't, it's a different path, and it's not, you know, it might be a song might just enable her to have enough money where she can go do her art because her art is so good, or, you know, or it's connected. Why not?
Well, the video would include her art.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I did some stuff with her a while back with Paper Doll, because she has her own take on the song Paper Doll.
Oh.
And, you know, I took some video of her, and then I was going to put her art into it also. Because there are, you know, the inspiration is, in my opinion, paper dolls. You know, what she makes are very sophisticated and beautiful paper dolls.
Yeah.
You know, so
well, and
she dresses them up and she cuts them out and she puts them on the wall and sells them. You know, and that's so that was part of what we were going to do with it, but she never did a recording of it.
Yeah.
That I've ever heard. So I've got all this footage, but I don't have a recording to cut it to.
Yeah. Oh, good, because well, she's got it. She's just barely. God, she's just getting there finally.
Oh, I know.
We didn't lose her. Whew.
Yeah.
That was a tough one. I had 2 friends last year that were just like that, and they both are better and in a good space. I think she made it through.
Yeah.
Now she just got to make it through the stupid insurance car thing. God, but you know, that's life.
You never know what's going to happen with that stuff. Just let it flow. You know, don't borrow trouble. Just know it's out there and say, I'm going to live my life anyway.
Yeah, and I think she's saying that too. I love her point of views. You know, what I went through, nothing compared to this. You know, this is just about I didn't have my insurance and someone wants money from me, and that's right. You know, I'll figure it out.
Well, so far they haven't said that they want money from her.
Oh, good. I haven't wanted to talk with her too much about it because it's
I'm
like,
see her tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll get the whole scoop.
Yeah. No, I'm really happy about where Janet is right now.
Well, I want you to hold that boat up that did you make that or did your mom make that?
Well, my mother made this boat, and then I painted it. And the surprising thing is that it is a hat.
It's a boat and a hat.
It's a boat and a hat.
It's a facsimile of a boat that's actually something that's supposed to be worn on the head.
Yeah.
So you'd be a boat head.
Yeah, a boat head. And I don't know where the concept came. I might have said to my mom, you know, could you do it? No. Or she might have done it. But what was great about it was that, and the great thing about Ed and the Boats for me personally was that it was way more fun to be the merch girl for Ed and the Boats, because you would wear this hat around and people would come and buy CDs from you.
And that's, you know, as I don't know, I don't want to call it, give it a name, as unsophisticated a concept as that is, it works.
Now, Scott Fisher, who cannot be cheesy, I can't do anything like that. You know, it's like you can't do that. Either for him, that doesn't work for him, or for his audience, you know, but...
Yeah, well, you know.
Yeah.
It's a bit naive, you know, and we did struggle with that kind of stuff, you know. It's like, but we also just at the point we were at, we knew that nothing we did actually worked, so.
Yeah, and I'm just glad that this thing is still intact. It's a I tried to get the stuff, but I remember, I don't know if we debuted it there, but I have this very strong memory of going up to Folk Life. Was it Folk Life or was it Bumpershoot?
Up in
Seattle.
I'm not sure.
And this, of course, it was one of those times where Ed and the Boats got to be on a bigger stage with thousands of people around. Not, just there they are, because anytime that happened for the Boats, when people were there, they would get it. They would get it. And that wearing that hat around in the crowd, walking around and just selling CDs, hand over fist, walking through the crowd, and that was a really great show. I remember that one.
Cool.
So this does.
Here's another one I want to talk about is the show in Roslyn, Washington, where we went up and you got very sick, I think, right?
Oh my God, I got very sick.
Yeah. Talk about that for a little
Well, when I was traveling for a living.
How did we get that show?
Okay, I'll tell you. It's a good story. If I could, I used to tell the story, and I don't think I'll remember all the details. But this is when I was traveling, and I had a teaching job up in Wenatchee, so they had me rent a car. I drive up, and I'd heard about Roslyn because it was the era of Northern Exposure. So I stop in at the Brick, and it's probably like a Sunday afternoon or something. I'm on my way back to Portland, and I'm drinking, and there's a guy there, and we start talking, and he's buying me drinks, and it's getting later, and he says, do you need a place to stay? And I said, okay, but I'm not going to sleep with you, because it was going that way. And so he takes me to his house, and that's the house that's filled with huge life-sized African artifacts. Do you remember that part of it? All the carved, he and his wife had collected all these things from Africa. They were very valuable. They were as impressive as the stuff you probably would see in the Seattle Museum. It was a funky little house. He did make a pass, but he didn't, insist on it, so. But now I had an agent in that town, and the whole reason I stopped by the Brick was I thought, wouldn't that be cool if we could play the Brick? And so the whole thing that came to pass was that the Brick was an actual old roadhouse, or it was I think it's the oldest maybe operating bar in Washington. I mean, it's very old, and it had a what do they call it? Like it's not a spittoon. They had an actual trough that ran along the bars for people to piss in.
Oh my goodness.
That they would piss in this, and it would have running water, and so once a year they would have boat races in it, little toy boats.
Yeah, and there's a drain down at the end.
And so, by being my own marketing self, Ed and the Boats, boat races, we had this connection, we had a place to stay.
Northern Exposure,
that maybe they'll see us. Yeah. And so we go up there, but the part that, of course, you learn, this is one of those, how I learned through tremendous failure, is that I didn't do any vetting of what was the demographic going to be and what kinds of bands had they really expected.
Right.
And so I think how it worked was there was 2 nights. We were playing 2 nights. The first night was kind of the warm-up night. It wasn't really much. And the next night was the big night.